Good afternoon, everybody. There's a lot of nervous people out there today thinking, what the hell is he going to say? And one in particular was sat right at the front, Skyping my daughter now in England. They're both sat there thinking, oh, God, here he goes. But anyway, don't worry. All your secrets are safe with me. After all my years in Gibraltar, I've learned when to keep my mouth shut and when my wife allows me to speak, okay? First of all, a big thanks to Julian for allowing me to give my story today. It's been 3 years he's been after me and I've always been unavailable. Big thank you to you as well for staying around. It's a long day today. 15 minutes is difficult, and it's particularly difficult for me because I'm a retired head teacher, and we are known for boring people to death for hours on end. I've told them to get the klaxon ready. I've told them to get the guys from OSG security so they can drag me off, kicking and shouting at the end. I'm going to give it a try. I just want to take you on a journey very quickly from where I came from to where I am today as a fully fledged, signed up Gibraltarian. Very quickly, brief history of where it started. 20th September 1958, Sleaford Nursing Home in Lincolnshire. And it always sort of struck a chord with me. Why was I born in a nursing home? Was I meant to be old straight away? And my mother could never tell me I wasn't born in the maternity wing of a hospital. You were born in Sleaford. Well, I left it. Because I'm from a rural community in Lincolnshire, and there's nothing stranger than rural people, I can tell you now. So anyway, things were good. I went back to the small village of Caythorpe, where I grew up, to the little cottage. No hot running water, no flush toilet. I have memories of the tin bath in front of the fire, mum heaving buckets of water, sat there splashing. The chemical toilet outside, which my grandfather emptied once a week. And I think at that time, it instilled an appreciation in me of everything that was given to me and every opportunity that was afforded to me throughout my whole life. And it started then. Age of 7, we moved to a much more modern bungalow. I had my own bedroom, which was incredible. Then the formative years at Caythorpe Primary School under the watchful eye of Mr. Alfred Beckworth, the first person, I would say, outside the family who had a tremendous influence on my career. He really did look after me. I wasn't an easy child in many ways. If my mother was here today, she would verify that, okay? I wasn't a great student. I hated studying. I couldn't see the point of it. As a teenager, 2 things mattered: sport and girls. All right. And so things changed, thankfully, okay? And I always remember Mr. Beckworth, after he passed away, I went back to my village and went to visit his grave just to say a few prayers. And on his tombstone, it had, "He cared." And I thought, he did. And that's how I want to be remembered. I said, I would like to think, professionally and personally, people think, he cared. Because I think that's important, not in just society, but as people ourselves. Anyway, 11 came along. I took this dreaded thing called the 11 plus. Some of you might remember it, some of you historians amongst us. And I scraped through to get to King's School for Boys, a grammar school in the town called Grantham, which was actually voted the most boring town in the 1980s. So I can't say too much about Grantham. The school I went to was really, there were 2 famous pupils. There was myself and a guy called Sir Isaac Newton that did something with apples, okay? And that was it. But we weren't a bad school, we did well. The good thing about King's School Grantham was I discovered the game of rugby. And for me, it was brilliant. I found a sport where, and my nickname at the time in the village was Lump. I was a big lad, all right? It's not just I've grown since I came to Gibraltar and eat all the potaje and the rosto and all the rest of it. I was big before I arrived. And I got this sport, I thought, this is brilliant. I can go from A to B and I can go through people. I don't have to go around them. This appealed to me. So that, I loved rugby ever since. Moving on very quickly, September 1978, I met my first ever live breathing Gibraltarian. Okay, I'd not heard much about Gibraltar. I knew about monkeys. I knew about the hot climate. And this gentleman called Kenneth Sayers, who's been a great friend for many years, we found ourselves on the same teacher training course at Padgate College near Warrington and became friends. One thing led to another. And in June 1980, he said, "Come to Gibraltar." Okay, we'd been to Greece the year before for 5 weeks and had done all the things that students of the day did, visited museums and studied history. And that's what I told my mother, and bless her, to her dying day, she still believed it. So he brought me to Gibraltar. So really, if you want to blame anybody for me being here, find Kenneth Sayers and says, "Ay, que deal, what have you done?" Okay? So came over, settled in, brilliant. I remember Kenneth's uncle, I didn't know at the time because Kenneth translated it afterwards. I got off the plane with this other guy who was the same size as me from college, and Kenneth's uncle just went to me in Spanish and said, "Good God, are they all this size?" So he thought you were being invaded. But I loved it. I fell in love with Gibraltar straight away. I have to admit, even before I found the love of my life, all right? And is that, did I get it right? Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. I couldn't read your writing, darling. The weather was amazing. I'd not discovered the Levanta cloud, but I still felt it was good. People were warm, welcoming. I joined Glasses men's volleyball team, where I met some really crazy people who I think were certifiable. Grammarians cricket team, later on the Blue Stars basketball team. But after a few weeks, we felt we can't live off Kenneth's parents for the whole summer. So the three of us said, we'll go and get a job. So we all went out looking. Of course, I come back, El Giri. You get a job? I said, he said, yeah, what? Lifeguard. No, I said, yeah. The others, one had got a job with a painting company else, and the other was working with Saucony and Speed delivering drinks. And the Geary got the lifeguard job. Priceless. So great. You know, the best job I've ever done in my life. The easiest money I've ever learned. Put the red budgie smugglers on, walk nonchalantly up and down Eastern Beach. Tremendous stuff. Georgina gave me an idea earlier, actually, when she wore her GB tracksuit, but I thought it'd be too traumatic if I came out in them. Some of you would not get the counselling you required. After a few weeks, things changed quite dramatically. Obviously, the local girls found out that there was fresh meat on the savannah. So they would come down and make them say, So I took this opportunity to practice some of my Spanish, which was, to say it was terrible would be a compliment. Okay, it was below terrible. But it was good fun, and this one particular girl, I managed a few phrases, and then I left because they were all sniggering behind me anyway. And we bumped into each other later on, a few weeks later, at a place called the Goggles Discotheque. Remember that? The old people here? Goggles Disco? Yes, bring it on. Well, as they say, the rest is history. She's been my wife now for nearly 35 years. Some could say that I met the girl of my dreams in Gibraltar. Others might say she met the man of her dreams. Depends on which way you want to look at it. Just so you know, both of us are available for interviews afterwards. I went back to study and then returned in June '81, where I became a lifeguard again at Sandy Bay. And then in September, started at St. Mary's Middle School in Johnston's Passage under the tutelage of a very eccentric headmistress called Miss Dorita Montegrifo. Oh, wow. I remember for 1 hour, she taught me how to write the Rock of Gibraltar R. Well, I really had lost the will to live. I thought, if this is what it's about. Luckily, it got better after that, and things went very well. Going back a bit, I'd actually wanted, up to the age of 15, to be an airline pilot. Okay, I'd had this thing with planes and flying planes, and we decided I would fly the plane, and my brother would drive the little trucks that collected the luggage. That was our agreement. Sadly, both of us never aspired to that. But it was this time, at the age of 15, one of those life-changing moments occurred. I was in my first year of an O-level maths course, and to put it bluntly, I was not the most academic. As I said, it didn't appeal to me. And I had this maths teacher called Maurice Hackett. He was a real diminutive little man, spoke in a very high-pitched voice. And you can imagine an all-boys school of 11 to 18-year-olds, this guy, he went through the mill. But having said that, he dissected the concepts, rebuilt them until I thought, I'm getting this. I thought, isn't that wonderful? What a wonderful thing. I'd like to do that. I thought, I'm not going to do maths. So I went back to the careers teacher and told him, I said, I want to be a teacher. And he said, what? And you've got to remember, this is a grammar school. All the masters, as we called them, were from Oxford and Cambridge. All very clever people. And he looked at me and said, look, he said, let's be realistic here. What can you do? I said, well, I play rugby. He said, well, perhaps you could be a PE teacher. I thought, brilliant. All right, great. Tracksuit all day, etc., etc. No books to mark. Loved it. So I get a letter eventually, and I'm back here and what have you. There were two issues that really, I think, initially were problematic. One was the food, and one was the language. Right? My mother said before I came here for the first time, she said, when you go, behave yourself and eat everything that's put in front of you. And I mean everything. I said, yes, Mum. I always listen to my mother. So I get there and I start trying all these dishes, and I tried something called calamaris, the squid, and I thought, well, not bad, because Kenneth's mother always told me afterwards what I'd eaten. And she brought me this particular dish one day, we were all eating one day, and it was like meat rolled up with the stuffing inside, covered in gravy and onions. And I learned later it was called rollitos. So I start eating, and yeah, it was nice, what have you, and some of the bits were a bit chewy, but I ate it all. And I'm on my second one, I'm chewing away, and they're all looking at me sniggering. What's wrong? And Kenneth's mother turned over and says, you don't eat the toothpicks. So I'm thinking, oh dear. And I can imagine now they must have been thinking, que burro el inglés, no? So, and again related to food, I remember marking my first set of books, and I said, right, let's get to know the kids. All right, so I said, what did you do in the summer? And they all told me what they'd done and everything like that. And I'm marking this book and this book. I said, oh, I was at the beach, and we had this, we had that. And then we had lunch, and then we had potato slap. And I think, potato slap? Must be a Gibraltarian dish. Shooty, what's potato slap? Claro, torta patata. and I thought, it gave me an insight into the Gibraltarian child's way of thinking through things. So that was very good. That was very good indeed. I sat on my own in that first summer watching a basketball match, a Spanish game, and Kenneth came over and said, oh, how's the game going? He says, awesome. It's one of the best basketball matches I've seen. I said, it's end-to-end stuff. And I said, there's a guy there. He doesn't miss. He is brilliant. I don't know who he plays for. He says, well, what's his name? He says, Canasta. So it was a steep learning curve for me, I have to say, all right? Yeah. There's worse than that, but I'm not allowed to do that here, okay? There's one particular incident. I remember as a teacher at Sacred Heart Middle School, we had this lovely caretaker, Marushi Ferrari. She was a wonderful woman, do anything for you and what have you. And I was cleaning out my classroom one day, and I thought, well, I'll get everything cleaned up before I put it all back. And I said, Mrs. Ferrari, in my best Spanish, por favor, si no importa, me limpio los, and you know the word for draw and part of the male genitalia has one letter. I said, sí, Mr. Lai, sin problema. So off I went, and I'm sat there going, did I just ask her to clean? No. I went straight back and apologized. I said, I am so sorry, Mrs. No, I didn't realize what you actually wanted cleaning. So thank God for that. So, and really, you know, there's so much more I could tell you, but time has gone very quickly, quicker than I expected. I know I'd like to finish by saying that I love Gibraltar, everything it has to offer. I love the idiosyncratic way of how the community works, how people say bye when you actually meet them. My daughter was born here, and I intend to see out my days here. I've been privileged to be part of a profession where I've influenced, guided, advised young people's lives, including current Chief Minister, Georgina Cassar, doctors, lawyers, current head teachers. And I always promised myself, when I retired, I'm now in my second year of retirement, I said, I want to give back to Gibraltar. Gibraltar has given me everything. a wife, a family, place to live. I've traveled the world with Gibraltar, with sport, and I have a few high-profile positions now in the community, and I wouldn't give it up for the world, okay? I want to say to you most sincerely, once I was a guiri, and now I'm a Janito. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.